Hello, this is Travis White with NewBlue, and I'm here to show you NewBlue Titler Pro Basics inside Avid Media Composer. This is part one of a multi-part series, so let's get started. Now, as you know, you have had for some time a title tool in Avid Media Composer called the Avid Title Tool. What we're going to do here is we're going to look at a lot of basics of the kinds of things that you have been achieving in that Avid Title Tool, and then we're going to go beyond. So you can understand how you can create 2D, 3D, animated titles inside your own timeline of Avid Media Composer. But the first things first, how do you apply Titler Pro? Well, let's go up to the Effect palette and find it here in the Effect palette. And of course you would drag and drop it to a clip on your timeline. One thing that I like to do is find an edit point and use the tool in Media Composer, Add Edit. And this will do a slice on a track, and I can go ahead and apply the effect right there. And now I have the default text of Titler Pro coming up. So what I want to do is, obviously, go to the Effect Editor, and there's one control in the Effect Editor, and that's Launch the User Interface of NewBlue Titler Pro. So I'll give you a bit of a survey of what our interface is about. Right here you have your workspace, which will be doing the majority of our work. Over here on the left you have a control panel for your object's orientation. Under Style will be how your characters look. Under Effects and Transitions we'll get into in another tutorial, and finally in the library is where you can find a number of presets, but we're going to start from scratch in this case. Down here on the timeline we have a timeline of 10 seconds because that's the duration of the slice on my Media Composer timeline. This blue bar represents what we call a paragraph. A paragraph is a string of characters and carriage returns and tabs and all of that is a block of text essentially. I want to notice the safe margins here. So we have title safe and we have action safe. Now for some of you who have to develop shows that have to be aired in 4:3 as well, we have a safe margins in 4:3 inside 16:9 option for you. Now if you're working in a 4:3 project from the Media Composer timeline, of course you'd get the appropriate safe margins, but right here we'll go back to our widescreen format. So what are we going to do here? One thing is scrub the timeline, and look, we have frame accurate motion video behind our text, so we can really see what's happening because Titler Pro is going to be giving us animation, which we'll get into later. So this is a first shot of a band, and this band's name happens to be the Keplers. So we're simply going to Control All and type in the Keplers. Now how do you move in size? Well, you can do that in the attribute panel. Position X, position Y. You can check this anchor point or this lock icon for X, Y, and Z to stay together for your scale, and scale up and scale down. Don't necessarily confuse scaling with Z-space, closer or further away, and that will matter later on when you're doing animation. But for now, let's just keep things basic. And what you can also do is do those same operations directly in your workspace. So if you grab the corner of text, you'll be sizing it up and down and keeping its aspect ratio. If you grab the side of a paragraph, you'll be squashing or stretching both directions. So that's how to keep all that working there. Now what about justification? Well, let's go ahead and enter another line so that we can see this working. Down is going to be the song that we're going to be talking about. So right here you have justification center possibly. You have justification right, left. You also have left and right, which we get into when we're doing rolling credits in that tutorial because of that center trough or margin that we have. But we'll stick with justification left. And to move, you simply grab the edge, not one of these resize handles, but simply the edge of the paragraph and move it around. Now one thing we want to do is sometimes text is in an area that's not so readable. So how do you change color? So let's go to Attributes, Style, and let's work with the color tool. You could simply use the eyedropper to pick a color out of the scene. So let's say a brown or maybe a green, and maybe that green needs to be pumped up, so you click the color swatch and work with the color that way. But actually what I want to do is I just want to do a basic white. So we're going to do that. Now we just did a color. What about a gradient? Well, you can do a gradient or a texture, which we'll get into later, but let's work with a gradient right now. The gradient has 2 points that you can work with, and if you check one of those circles, you can dial in another color. Notice that we have the gradient happening on both lines. So you can have each line having its own gradient control. In fact, it's really going character by character at the moment. If we change this gradient to the side, you'll see each character is receiving that gradient. But we'll go ahead and go back to what we had. And there's another way to do this too. In fact, let's go edge to edge. We can check stretch to paragraph. And now you can see that this gradient is being controlled across the entire paragraph. That can be handy depending on the effects that you want. But what we're going to do here is simply have it do line by line on its own. So we're going to uncheck stretch to paragraph. And also, it's not popping so well, so how would you add a shadow? Well, we've just been working on what we call a style layer. We have one style layer right now. So I'm going to add another style layer, and that is a shadow in this case. So now, pop, there's your shadow. You can change the blur settings, you can change its opacity, its offset in different positions, and there you have a gradient, a blur, your text. Stay tuned for our next installment of Titler Pro Basics as we learn about leading and kerning, copy and paste, multiple paragraphs, style layers, adding shapes, animation, and much more. This is Travis White. Thanks for watching.